Support for Steppin Out comes in part from the Kristovich family in honor of Mary Lou and Bill Kristovich. This program is sponsored in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support the arts and culture in the greater New Orleans area.
Good evening, I'm Peggy Scott Laborde and welcome to Steppin Out, covering the New Orleans area's arts and entertainment scene during these trying times. With us tonight, Ian McNulty, food writer for the New Orleans Advocate and Times-Picayune. Good to see you,
Hi,
Ian.
Peggy. Thanks for having me.
Hey. And here to update us on the status of the local dining scene, of course, he'll be with us and the personnel involved. We're so glad he could be with us. He's a busy guy these days. Later on in our program, Alan Smason of Crescent City Jewish News and TheaterCriticism.com. Hey, Alan, good to see you. Sharing some news and making some viewing suggestions while we're all spending more time at home. Good to see you, Alan. But first, Ian, I mean, we could go on for days and days. How are some restaurants coping?
Well, Peggy, this city has seen a lot, right? We've lived through a lot. We've lived through a lot together. I don't know if there's ever been a week quite like this. I mean, hurricanes, even the big one with Katrina, just seems different, right? And the way that this has unrolled has been really difficult for everybody, but it's been especially hard for the hospitality sector. So what we started out with the week in the condition of our hospitality industry and the way we're ending it, radically different. It's dark days, it really is. But I'm here to tell you that it's not over, right? Life goes on, things are changing quite a bit. And in a New Orleans way, people are continuing to eat. They're continuing to support the businesses and the neighborhood restaurants and their neighbors and each other. And, this is going to continue to evolve. What I've been impressed with is the creativity and the spirit with which the New Orleans restaurant community has thrown itself into, what you only can describe as survival mode. So, of course, I think by now people know what's gone on. Social distancing is vital to fight this coronavirus spread. And so, the health authorities and the state authorities are closing down places where people gather and convene. And unfortunately, that is the essence of hospitality, of our bars and our restaurants. Bars are closed outright. If you had a bar license in Louisiana, we're talking the whole state, you're done. You're shut down by the state. Restaurants are not required, they are not closed. Restaurants do not have to close. Many of them had to close, but the state is allowing them to operate their kitchens for takeout, for delivery, for curbside pickup. The rub is they're not technically required to close, they're required to end dine-in service, but for many restaurants, that meant they had to close. Many restaurants.
Well, Antoine's totally closed.
Of course, yeah. And different restaurants are handling this differently. For many restaurants that probably could continue doing takeout or delivery, they made the call to simply close down, to allow their employees to seek unemployment benefits. We'll cover that in a moment. But others are carrying on, and if you look around New Orleans neighborhoods, you can see different strategies to do that, and also, for me, just in the past week, a lot of comfort in some familiar flavors and some familiar faces that I've seen from a safe distance. Again, the key is takeout, curbside, delivery, minimizing the human contact that could put people at risk of spreading this virus. And so the restaurants that are open have to walk a very fine line, and everyone is waiting to see what happens next and how things evolve. But around town, I needed a cup of gumbo. I desperately needed some gumbo, and I found one at Dunbar's Creole Cafe. How long has Dunbar's been sustaining people with its gumbo? Well, they're on Earhart Boulevard now. Of course, they started out on Ferret Street back in the day. A lot of people will remember that. I walked into Dunbar's. I called ahead, and I got this gumbo, and it was like a kit, Peggy. You just saw it. It was the gumbo in that foam cup, Aww. And then on the side, the rice, the potato salad, the bread. I ate it in my car. It was soul stirring. It really was. Around the corner from where I live, personally, is Mandina's on Canal Street. That classic, right? What's going to happen to a place like Mandina's? Been around since the 1930s. Well, they're still doing takeout and delivery. You call them up, use your credit card, go get your shrimp po' boy, your shrimp platter, whatever they've got. You can see people pulling in. Habits die hard. So, people have really adjusted the way that they're interacting with these restaurants.
Could you actually get an alcoholic drink?
Well, restaurants are permitted to serve, to sell you to go wine and beer. Bottled wine and bottled beer.
And not mixed drinks.
That's the way that the rules are written. Yeah. Again, this is a very creative community, Peggy.
Yes.
I expect creativity in all matters that go forward in this. But the state is allowing restaurants to sell you takeout wine and beer packaged. Okay. Around the corner from Mandina's, Clessy's Seafood on Bienville Street impressed me with its curbside crawfish. Okay, this is a good example of what a lot of places are doing. We had a story in the paper today, the first Friday in Lent since the world turned upside down, about crawfish. Well, crawfish season started out great, and it is going great. There's lots of crawfish out there, and the prices are low. But these restaurants that serve it have had to, of course, change their model and how they get it to you. So call ahead, swoop in, get your favorite crawfish from your favorite place to go. Scythers out in Harahan. I've seen it at Bevy. I've seen it at Salvo's. Of course, the markets. Yeah, the grocery stores and the markets, those are allowed to be open. And most of the seafood markets, too, that you think about in Bucktown, Mandeville, West Bank, those are food stores, which are also open. And then finally, Boucherie, I thought, was an interesting example of how chefs are changing with these unprecedented times, because Boucherie is a nice upscale bistro over in the Carrollton area, Jeanette Street. But right now, Chef Nathaniel over there is doing family-style meals, so catering pans of comfort food dishes that you can bring home that'll feed 4, 6, whatever, and a couple little flavors that you might have found on his regular menu, like that Krispy Kreme bread pudding that it does. So nothing's normal, but there is familiar tastes out there if that's what you're craving, if that's what's going to be your comfort. If you think about a restaurant that's important to you or that you're craving, look it up online. You may be surprised by what they're doing to carry on right now. And I'll give a plug to our Facebook page, the paper's Where Nola Eats Facebook group. If you join that, you can search in that group, use the hashtag NOLAOpen, and all the places that have been posting their own menus, their own hours, their own sort of updates of operations will come up and you can shop around.
Hugely helpful. Well, great. We'll be back to you for much more in just a moment. But since yesterday was St. Joseph's Day, in which the saint is traditionally venerated through the display of altars with Lenten dishes, since it couldn't happen, it didn't take place locally, let's pay tribute to our city's Italian heritage by spotlighting a true New Orleans saint, Mother Francis Xavier Cabrini. She wanted to leave Italy and go east to the Orient, but Pope Leo XIII urged her to go west to America, where so many of her countrymen were poverty-stricken and needed assistance. Mother Francis Xavier Cabrini founded the Missionary Sisters of the Sacred Heart, arriving in New York City in 1889. 3 years later, she and her nuns came to New Orleans to tend the needs of local Italian, mostly Sicilian immigrants. The sisters occupied a large building on St. Philip Street in the French Quarter and opened a school and later a day nursery. But the priority was to start an orphanage, since many children had lost their parents due to yellow fever outbreaks. Outgrowing their French Quarter facility, Mother Cabrini secured a donation of $75,000 from Captain and Mrs. Salvatore Pizzotti. With those funds, in 1905, Cabrini was able to build an orphanage on Esplanade Avenue. On view in the building is her bedroom, as well as many personal items, along with her checkbook. She died in 1917. But her missionary Sisters of the Sacred Heart continued their work in New Orleans. By 1959, the orphanage was converted into a Catholic girls' high school. 6 years later, a modern structure was built on Bayou St. John, behind the original building. Mother Cabrini became a naturalized citizen and is America's first saint. But because of her local legacy, she is considered the original New Orleans saint. By the The way Bricado's, right there on Carrollton near Canal, had an altar next to one of their front windows, and they are currently doing takeout. But I was glad to see that they had the altar in. You said you saw it too. Huh?
It was touching. Yeah, the family tradition continues there.
I'm so glad. And New Orleans Magazine's quiz queen, Julia Street, has a question for us. Last time, David Hayes gave us the names of the official Louisiana state flower and the official Louisiana state wildflower, the magnolia and the iris. Now, tonight's question: this restaurant is known for its baked Alaska. Another former restaurant was famous for its mile-high pie. Email your answers to steppinout@wyes.org. Our prizes: a year's subscription to Louisiana Life magazine. Tonight we have a dish towel, another prize, with a message, "Love is crawfish," from our friends at wearablevegetables.com. I would agree, by the way. You can go to wyes.org/steppinout for our YouTube page for WYES On Demand to see our program online. And now back to Ian. Ian, let's talk about the inevitable repercussions with the employees who work at in the restaurant industry and bars.
It's really been incredible and just heartbreaking, really, Peggy. Just to frame it, we have to understand why this is happening. It's happening because of that social distancing mandate. People have to stop interacting with each other and getting close to each other. They say that's the way that the only way they'll get a handle on this rapidly spreading virus, right? And so that's been hitting a lot of different parts of the economy. A lot of people, unfortunately, are out of work. But one of the places where it's shown up just immediately and vividly and just tragically, dramatically for New Orleans has been the restaurant business, because hospitality business in general, let's say, bars closed, all those people out of work. Restaurants, as we said earlier, a lot of them trying to get by with takeout. Well, they can't do that with a full staff. There's some smaller mom and pop restaurants that are keeping people on, but anywhere that's open, they're struggling just to keep a few people going with this.
And when you start thinking about numbers, my understanding is that Creole Concepts had, which has many restaurants, the Gumbo Shop, Broussard's, the list is long, had 1,100 people?
Yeah.
And Ralph Brennan over 600?
These layoffs are in waves of the hundreds at individual places. And the larger places are going to make the most dramatic impact like that. These are big restaurant groups. They have large individual restaurants. Arno's restaurant alone had over 200 people who, fortunately, were laid off this week. These are heart-rending decisions for the people who operate these businesses, who are trying to get in a position where they can reopen at some future point and hire people back. I should say all the restaurateurs I talk to are very eager to stay in touch with their employees. They're trying to help them with health insurance benefits and what other aid and assistance may be forthcoming from higher authorities. Something on a national level is what they're all pleading for. Some assistance and benefits for these people who are suddenly, through no fault of their own, out of a job all at once with no prospects for getting rehired anytime soon. It's a very, very harrowing situation, and particularly in New Orleans because of how much we rely on our hospitality industry. Our restaurant community is traditionally the anchor for our culture and for how we all interact with each other. Think about what happens in normal hard times, right? We rally together, we go to restaurants together, we have festivals together, the restaurants are always there, the restaurants feed us, they feed our souls. Now they need our help more than ever, and we're going to have to get creative in how we as New Orleanians support this industry, because those big gatherings are off the table right now, right? This is a hard thing for New Orleans people to get their head around. They want to go support. They want to go help people out. They want to give them a big old hug and eat and drink together, and we're going to get through this.
It's hard not to. I'm so you want to do that.
Yes, you do.
And a whole other show, of course, would be tourism and the impact just locally in addition to that.
Well, Peg, that's the perversity of this crisis for us in particular, is that it takes away our coping mechanism, which is let's get together and celebrate, and revelry in the face of adversity is a civic value in New Orleans. But
exactly.
It's different. But you can support these people. There are initiatives taking shape. There are ways that you can support the restaurants that are still open and are in many cases trying to support their own employees.
Buy gift certificates, gift cards.
Yes, and you can keep hope and optimism. This entire community is in this together. It's going to take a lot of heart and grit to get through this, And what is heart and grit fed on?
That's right.
Hope and optimism. So look for ways that you can help. Look for ways that you can help individuals. Look for ways that you can help the businesses that are connected to these individuals. Look for ways you can help your neighbors. And stay tuned. There's going to be a lot more coming, okay? We're going to be living with this for a while, and I have no doubt that the heart and soul and creativity of New Orleans people is going to make a difference.
Thank you so much, Ian. Beautifully put. And since we all ended up having a very quiet St. Patrick's Day, especially Finn McCool's and so many others, as I know Ian would attest to, we wanted to showcase an Orleanian originally from Ireland who came to the aid of so many children during the 1800s.
One of the earliest public monuments in the nation honoring a woman was erected in New Orleans in 1884. The statue depicts Margaret Haughery, an Irish immigrant known for her generosity to the city's orphans and poor. 4 years after arriving in Baltimore with her family, a yellow fever epidemic orphaned 9-year-old Margaret. Tragedy struck again after she came to New Orleans in 1835. Within a year, she lost both her Irish-born husband and newborn daughter. Margaret found work in the laundry of the St. Charles Hotel and began donating her time and wages to the Sisters of Charity, who ran the New Orleans Female Orphan Asylum. With her meager savings, Margaret bought a couple of cows to provide milk for the children. 2 years later, she had a thriving dairy, and as she made deliveries around the city, she collected food for orphans from hotels and restaurants along her route. This enterprising businesswoman never learned to read or write, yet transformed a bankrupt bakery into the first steam-operated bakery in the South, shipping bread and other goods to other cities using a packaging method that she invented. When Margaret died in 1882, her sizable estate went to the St. Vincent Infant Asylum and other Catholic orphan asylums with bequests to Protestant and Jewish orphanages. 2 years after her death, local orphans unveiled the statue of Margaret, the Mother of Orphans, which still graces the intersection of Camp and Britannia Streets.
And we thank Marcia Cavanaugh for that wonderful narration. Margaret's statue is still with us and located in a square in the Lower Garden District neighborhood, right off Britannia, actually near the interstate. And special thanks to the Historic New Orleans Collection and the Moreau Foundation for their support of our local history features. And now it's time for our Art Spotlight. Tonight we are highlighting the National World War II Museum's website. There are online exhibits and over 200 videos of lectures over the years. Go to nationalww2museum.org. And now we've got Alan Smason with us. Alan, with news on the local entertainment scene. So many changes. You're out there, Alan?
I am indeed. I hope you can see and hear me. Just wanted to first off give you some news right now breaking, and that is that sadly, the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra and the New Orleans Opera Association have announced the cancellation of the season for right now. The opera was planning on putting on production. First off, that it is not going to happen, but their production of the Magic Flute will transfer next season. So those,
okay.
yeah.
That's good
So
to
those
know.
are,
So sad,
but
though.
the actual season is over with till September, at least for the time being. Let's go to theater or drama, of course, and everyone, of course, knows every particular theater has had to close its doors to be in abeyance the law in terms of gatherings of more than 10 people. But I have actually contacted 3 of the major theaters in town, and I can give you reports on all of them. We're going to start off first off with Southern Rep. Southern Rep was, of course, the one that was most critically in need of funding. They had announced a campaign was going on, GoFundMe, that would require $315,000 by the end of this month. And I am happy to report that A. May Hayes has just announced that through other funding that they had from the GoFundMe campaign, as well as offline, they are going to continue operations through the spring. Now, of course, beyond the spring is another question. They're going to have ongoing fundraising. Cheminda Bayou, which they had hoped to start up in May is going to actually be rehearsing, they hope, in May and move back. So hopefully it'll be opening in June. Also, corporate and individual giving is still being asked for there. And absolutely, they remind everybody it's essential to not only support the theaters at this time, as Ian had mentioned, but also any of the restaurants that are out there that are ancillary, of course, any industries that need help right now. Please do that. Now, one of the other things that MA had mentioned was that New Orleans has battled a lot of hardships and a lot of hard times from hurricanes and other calamities, and they know the yellow fever epidemic, and so they know that we can do this. Let's move on to Le Petit Theater, of course, in the Vieux Carré. Maxwell Williams said it's eerie. There's hardly anybody in the French Quarter these days, but they are doing rehearsals and they're going ahead for Angels in America Part 1. The rehearsals are observing safe practices. Very bizarre. They're doing things through Skype, but most of the rehearsals right now are taking place at Le Petit. There's nobody at Tableau, of course. That restaurant has closed down, and I think they're shifting all of their operations to Dickie Brennan's Palace Cafe. The hope is that they'll be able
Is
to.
there an opening date for Angels in America? Do they have an opening date? Probably not. Huh?
I'm going to get to that. It really depends, and this is one of the problems that the artistic directors have. It really depends on whether or not April 13th is the cutoff date that had originally been envisioned for them to maybe open back up again. If they decide that that's the date, then yes, I think that there's a good chance that Angels in America will be put on later. If it's after 6 or 7 weeks, they may have to go on a hiatus, they said, and they may have to postpone it until after the season, possibly deal with the people who do the publishing and find out whether or not they'll do Angels in America Part 1 this season or move it to next season along with Perestroika, which is Part 2. But they can't say exactly because everything's up in the air. If it happens tomorrow, they could do it immediately. They also are hoping to also bring in A Night with Janis Joplin, which is a piece that I saw in San Francisco about 2 years ago. It's a fabulous piece. Hopefully they get to bring that down as well. But again, they're doing all of these rehearsals with safe distance, 6 feet among the actors, or doing it by Skype. And again, they hope to be able to report on newer things on that a little bit later on. Then let's move on to Rivertown Theaters. Kelly Fushi, the artistic director there with Gary Rucker, co-artistic director, there she is, had said that we're all set to do Moana Jr. And of course, then this happened. Their sets are completed. They want to leave everything as is. They're going to remount that at a later date. But one of the most important things is that Peter and the Starcatcher had 7 performances left. They're going to try to remount at least 5 to 7 performances of Peter and the Starcatcher in August. They have a selection of dates that they think they can move it to. So those of you who missed out, you'll be able to see Peter and the Starcatcher for that final week run. They also are hoping to move Drowsy Chaperone. It's not going to open in May as it had been envisioned, but Ricky Graham will be the old man in the chair, and they hope that maybe May the 8th or maybe May the 15th, that'll go on. So again, they're all doing all of their rehearsing via Skype. As I'm coming to you, they're doing all of the rehearsals with one-on-one with music directors. So they're all exercising all the safe guidelines that have been recommended by the CDC. Again,
I know you
one of the
wanted
things,
to talk a little bit about some things we could do from home. Can we briefly go through that too? Because that's, I think, pretty good suggestions.
right. One of the things I wanted to make mention is right now the internet is our best friend. They are taking care of business on Broadway. For those of you who are not familiar with YouTube, you're going to get to know it really good because there's several things that are going on right now. One of the biggest things, Stars in the House, Seth Rudetsky and his husband, James Wesley, have put on this fundraiser for the Actors Fund. And again, some of the people who are in this already this week, Seth Rudetsky featured Kelly O'Hara, Melissa Manchester, Terrence Mann, Lindsay Mendez, Kiala Settle, Mark Shaman, Jesse Mueller, Brian Stokes-Mitchell, Judy Kuhn, Ruthie Ann Miles. They are all either Tony Award winners or have been nominated. They're all fantastic stars on Broadway. You get to see them close up and personal, 2 o'clock every day, 8 o'clock every night, Eastern time, which would be, of course, here 1 o'clock and 7 o'clock. So keep that in mind as well. Also, the Metropolitan Opera, they're having full screenings of all of their Fathom events that are on. Go to the metopera.org to see what is up for grabs. They've had some beautiful renditions of La Boheme. I believe Le Fil du Régiment is on tonight. So check that out as well. Also, coming up on Sunday, two big shows. Melissa Errico did a show at Guildhall last year in New York. They're going to repeat this again for those of you who missed it last year in 2019. And she's looking forward to promoting this. It's on in 2 days. And then that's at 3 o'clock our time. And then at 6 o'clock our time coming up, and you have to listen to this. Listen to these people here on the Rosie O'Donnell Show with Rosie and Eric Bergen as the producers of this. John McDaniel returns as music director. They're going to be guest stars: Tony Award winner Stephanie J. Block, Matthew Broderick, Audra McDonald, Norbert Leo Butts, Kristen Chenoweth, Gavin Creel, Ben Platt, Billy Porter, Harvey Firestein, Neil Patrick Harris, Cheetah Rivera, Alan Menken, Sarah Jessica Parker, Brian Stokes Mitchell. You have to see this again. Fantastic. All right?
All right. Thank you so much. We'll be right back to you. But now it's time for our picks. Ian.
Look out for the citywide curbside fish fry, okay? The Friday fish fries are continuing under different circumstances. This one is a fundraiser for people in the hospitality industry.
Okay.
It's going on at 6 locations: Station 6, GW Fins, Pesh, Luke, Le Petit Grocery, and actually Bourbon House. I had that wrong on there. It's happening today, Friday, and they plan to continue it on subsequent Fridays. So look out for updates on that.
Thank you. Alan, did you have a pick for us? Or?
One last thing. All of the artistic directors asked us to please let people know that they're in dire need right now of financing and cash flow. If anybody has a ticket that can let it ride till next season, or possibly can just donate it, they could really use that infusion of cash instead of having to make refunds right now. They are really in dire straits. Please consider that as a possible donation.
All right. Thank you for the helpful info. Really appreciate it. Now, time for my picks. Cabrini High School is having an online auction. They're, of course, going to have their gala, but they have an online auction featuring such items as an autographed Saints football, giclée entitled Carnival by artist Becky Foss, and much, much more. So to see all these items and to bid, visit bidpal.net/Cabrini. and of course, helps Cabrini. The New Orleans Center for the Creative Arts, NOCA, their Art and Soul silent auction has been extended until this Sunday at 6 p.m. Visit NOCAinstitute.com for some great items up for bid, including dinner for 10 with James Beard Award-winning chef Steve Strajewski, a ride in the 2021 Orpheus Parade and a table at their ball, a trip to Spain, and many other items. And Herman Grima and Gallier Historic Houses also has an online wine fete auction and virtual gala. Bidding is open now, but actually closes tonight at 9 o'clock, so get it in now. Items include jewelry, beach condos, wine, and much more. Visit hggh.org to learn more. And Buku Eats on Canal Street, it's right across from the VA hospital. They are offering takeout, including different ways to place your order, such as going to drive-through window or ordering online. They're also offering delivery services. You can use Uber Eats, Waiter, and Grubhub. Call 598-5777 or visit bukueats.com. And Betsy's Pancakes on Canal in Mid-City is doing takeout and to-go orders. Ian, the list is long, isn't it?
It is, and it's going to continue to change. You know, we're going day to day here, that old expression, one day at a time, but you still have to eat. New Orleans is going to find interesting ways to do that.
So glad you could be with us. Thank you very much for watching. Good night.
Support for Steppin Out comes in part from the Kristovich family in honor of Mary Lou and Bill Kristovich. This program is sponsored in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support the arts and culture in the greater New Orleans area.